I'm Travis Wyly. Welcome to Unity of Little Rock, and welcome to the first week of Advent Sunday. Today is our first week of Advent. It begins our liturgical year as we move forward. This week we're going to be looking at faith and hope. But before we get into faith and hope, let's review the power for the month of November. The power for the month of November is release. I release anything and everything that no longer serves my unfolding good. The power of release. We have the Christ candle that is being lit as we speak now. Thank you, Linda. She is lighting the Christ candle, and that Christ candle is significant. It signifies that light within each and every one of us, that light of love, that light of Christ, that is the essence of who we truly are. So just take a moment wherever you are and let's connect with that Christ light. Our daily word for today is hope and faith. So I guess we really get two for one today, hope and faith. In the affirmation that was contained in the daily word, this Advent, my hope leads me to an unwavering faith. My hope leads me to an unwavering faith. Our statement of being, if you will, say this with me at home or here in the audience. I am an individualized expression of God. I am ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. We have the prayer box setting over there. You know, Unity Church is of course huge on prayer. If anyone has a prayer request they would like to make, they can place it in the prayer box. We'll pray over it here for 30 days. And then we send it on to Unity Village where it's prayed on there for 30 days. If anyone is needing specific prayer requests or prayer support, contact us. We have prayer chaplains here. I've been a trained prayer chaplain with Unity Church. Linda Strickland has been trained. Jeannie McGee's been trained. We have prayer chaplains here that are available to assist you in your prayer needs. And speaking of prayer, we're going to now ask Linda Strickland to come up, and she is going to lead us in our prayers.
Good morning. I decided that I might just kind of do a little research on Advent, so I took out my trusty International Dictionary. And I won't read all the definitions, but I thought a few were kind of interesting. That Advent comes from our medieval Latin adventus, meaning arrival. And one of the definitions is the coming of Christ at the incarnation, and in parentheses, second coming. And that has a curious meaning to me. And then not capitalized, Advent is a coming into being. And then we go with our week of hope and faith, and it comes from Middle English and Middle High German, and has kind of two meanings as a noun and a verb. And desire is the noun for hope, accomplished by expectation or belief in fulfillment in some place and person or thing. The verb, which is an action, is to cherish a desire with anticipation and expectation of obtainment, to expect with confidence, trust. And then faith comes from our Middle English, and it's derived from the French and then from the Latin, fidere, to trust. It's fidelity to one's promise and sincerity of intention. It's also a belief and trust in a loyalty to God, firm belief in something from which there is no proof, complete trust. And I thought that's quite interesting, and that in Advent, it celebrates the coming of Christ at the incarnation, the second coming. And we think about the second coming, in my vision, is maybe in the past being where Christ himself or herself or this shall manifest as a being on planet Earth. But if you think, if the Christ dwells within you, that you are an expression of Christ on earth, that you are the second coming of Christ. And I think that is a glorious thing to try and embrace, that you have that potential to be Christ-like. And it was said somewhere, I can't read chapter and verse, but those things that I do as Christ, you shall do and more. So we have that potential to be as a Christ, or that higher spirit within, and then also manifest more for our brothers and sisters. And we all truly are brothers and sisters because we are one family of humanity. And so now we kind of move into our prayerful attitude. So make yourself comfortable. Breathe in. Let it go. Become centered in the beingness of your higher divine self. I open myself to hope and faith. My hope is that I outwardly manifest Christ's guidance in my daily life. I'm expectant of that fulfillment. I have faith in the achievement of that. Complete trust, it shall be so. God is within me, beside me, is me. My hope and desire of Christ consciousness within is cherished. My faith provides a godlike knowing that Christ, God, and I are one. I am hope and faith in one vessel, hoping for greater awakening within the universal present moment and living expression of Christ awareness. With faith, knowing that each Christ movement within me and universal gift given is to be shared. I know and I can, because I can is hope, and I know is faith. I can manifest Christ consciousness in my daily life. I know the Christ consciousness is within me. I appreciate and hope and in my faith. My hope is belief in the fulfillment of my idea, or plural ideas. My faith is my belief that those ideas will be. May your hope and faith be that of the Most High, so that all manifestation and the non-manifest benefit in your receiving and giving. And so it is. Amen.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you very much. I appreciate the words you said about Advent to kind of prepare us and get us ready for our service here. So that's what we're talking about today. Hope and faith. Hope and faith. So welcome everyone. Good to see everyone here today. And again, I'm Travis Wyly. I am a board member here at Unity Church. I'm actually the treasurer on the board and filling in for Jean McGee, who is still on her little Thanksgiving break. She will be back with us this next weekend. So we're looking forward to seeing her back. But today we're happy to kick off the Advent season here at Unity Church of Little Rock and looking at this first week of Advent. And for me, this is a very special time of the year. Over the last many years, I guess, 10 or 15 years, I have come to develop a special relationship to the seasons of the year, and particularly this time of the year, this Advent season, leading into Christmas, which leads into Epiphany, which leads into Easter, and it's just this opportunity for us to go within and to strengthen these spiritual qualities within us that help us to live our life. And today, the qualities we're looking at are going to be faith and hope. So in this first week of Advent, we are called to take a time to pause and to reflect. Advent is a time of the year where we can really take stock, look back over the year that has just passed, and take a good inventory and take stock. Now, we're used to doing that around New Year's. You think about New Year's comes January 1st, and that's the time that typically, someone will look at their life and they'll say, well, this is kind of what's happened in the past year, and this is where I'm at today, and this is what I want to have happen in the next year. So we make resolutions and we make goals. And I think of all of that New Year's resolution inventory sort of thing being related to our physical life. So that's like if I'm looking back at my life and, oh my goodness, I've gained a few pounds this year. And so my resolution is I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to start walking. I'm going to lose some weight, or I'm going to set some financial goals. I want to save so much money, or I want to pay off this debt this year, things of that nature. The inventory that we are open to during this time of this year, the liturgical year, the start of the holy year, is a spiritual inventory. Advent calls upon us to do our spiritual taking of stock, if you will. As we consider our physical lives, we can always find the areas that we need to work on. But what about our spiritual life? When was the last time that we really took a look and did a spiritual inventory of ourselves ever? And so now we have this opportunity. We can look back over this past year and we can ask ourselves some questions. And to help us on our way, each week of Advent gives us this opportunity to explore and to develop these spiritual qualities that can strengthen our awareness of our divine identity. And this week we begin with hope and faith. The first principle of unity states, God is all there is and present everywhere. This is the force of love and wisdom that underlies all existence. Now, as I read this, and I love these principles of unity, now I want to address the word God that's used here, because that can be a triggering word for many people. So instead of God, in my own mind, I like to call it spirit. I think in terms of spirit is all there is and present everywhere. This is the force of love and wisdom that underlies all existence. So you can use spirit, or you may want to use the word love. In my mind, the word love it works just as well there. Love is all there is and present everywhere. This is the force of love and wisdom that underlies all existence. But as we think of this idea of spirit, this idea of love, this idea of God, it's important to understand that it is not something that is out there separate from us. I think it's important to understand that unity principles don't work if you still believe in a God that is separate from you. Very few of us are able to live in the fullness and the totality of the truth contained in that first principle. At first, I've been exposed to these ideas for decades now. Decades. And at first, when I first read that and got that concept, it was just an abstract idea that was out there, and it really had no significant meaning for me because I didn't really have the thoughts built up. I didn't have the forces, the feelings built up to really give meaning to this kind of a statement that God is all there is and present everywhere. Sometimes we're very much aware of the truth of that being. And sometimes we are very much aware that God is all there is. But yet at other times, the truth of that statement's a million miles away. We may feel as separated, as distant from any kind of spiritual power as anything we can imagine. And it is just during those times, during those hard times in our life, when God seems to be a million miles away, when spirit seems to be just some abstract idea that is meaningless to my life, it is during those times that I most need the quality of hope. The quality of hope. Hope is the quality that we must ignite and kindle when the days seem dark and when all seems lost. And unless we can kindle that spark of hope, then we fall into that pit of hopelessness and despair. And there is no worse feeling that I can think of on earth than this feeling of utter hopelessness, of having no hope. And so many people today suffer with this. They teeter on that edge of hope and hopelessness. And I believe it is these feelings of hopelessness that rise up in us, that lead us to these destructive actions, to violent actions and anger, destructive habits and addictions. And in its ultimate, I believe hopelessness leads to suicide. The daily word, which we alluded to, this is from today's daily word in the book. It says, my belief in goodness of the world, others, myself, and God begins with hope. Maybe hope is all I can muster after a period of doubt or disappointment. You know, we think about times when we've all gone through dark times in our life, you know, dark days of the soul, dark nights of the soul, where we've struggled, and maybe we've struggled to feel the light, to see the light, to know there is light. And it is during those moments that we have to find that spark of hope within ourselves. You know, I remember once, many years ago, I had a surgery. In fact, it's the only surgery I've ever had in my entire life. And I had ended up with acute diverticulitis, and I had to go to the emergency room and have emergency surgery. But I can remember the night before I went to the emergency room, I'd been really sick, been sick for a few weeks and just being hard-headed and not doing anything about it. But the night before I went to the ER that morning, I laid in my bedroom floor completely doubled over in pain, and I thought I was going to die. And I remember having the thought, well, Travis, you've really done it to yourself now. You've refused to go to the doctor, and you're going to lay here, and they're going to find you dead on your bedroom floor, and that'll be the end of it. You know, that's really where I was. The only comfort I had that night, thank God I had a pet cat at the time. I don't have to. And she stayed right there with me all night long. And I swear, I think that cat is probably the only reason I managed to make it through the night. I got up the next morning, went to the hospital, and I had the surgery. And you know what? When I recovered from the surgery the next day, I felt better. I mean, I could tell that what was in my body was starting to get better. And I went home, and I was beginning to have some hope. I began to feel a little bit of hope that maybe my body was going to heal and maybe I was going to be all right. And so I remember I decided I was going to start walking. I had to start building my stamina. So I got up and I decided to go for a walk. And I was a couple of days home from the hospital. I walked out my front door, and it's maybe 40 yards to the street from my front door. And I got to the street and I was completely wore out, had to turn around, make it back to the front door. And that was all I could do that day. That was it. But I had hope. That gave me even more hope. You know, one of the biggest joys of my career, you know, for those of you who don't know, I am a chiropractor, and I've been in practice now for about 39 years. So I've had the opportunity to help a lot of people, you know, deal with back pain and headaches and neck pain and such as that. And one of the biggest joys in my career as a chiropractor has been the many times I had a patient who had lost hope. that they would ever feel better. And as a chiropractor, I see this a lot because I'm an alternative care provider. So many times patients have gone everywhere else. They've gone all the medical route before they finally come to someone like me to say, can you help? And I can't always help, but it's such a feeling of fulfillment and joy and satisfaction when I get these patients that are near hopeless and we're able to help them and to restore them back to some level of pain-free living. And think about your own life. I know there have been times in your life whenever you were able to give someone hope. Think about what that means to you as someone who gives hope, but think about the times in your life when you've been at your rope's end, when you've been teetering on that point of hopelessness, perhaps ready to give up, and yet someone came to you and said something or did something or made a gesture in some way, and it gave you hope. Think of how important that was in your life to get hope, and also important to give hope. When we lose hope, life becomes pointless. What's the point? I once had an employee, and I loved Teresa. This has been 30 plus years ago. And she had a favorite saying, and she used to say this all the time in her beautiful country Arkansas accent. When you can cope, there's hope. You don't feel like a dope. Now, I'm telling you, I don't know if that really fits with my lesson or not, but it kept coming to me as I was preparing these thoughts, so I had to throw it in here. And as I was thinking about this, I think there's a little bit of truth in that. When you can cope, there's hope. And you don't feel like a dope. So how do we cope? How do we cope today? Well, that's what we learn here at Unity Church. There are many ways we can cope. I think the best way is to stay in the moment. Sometimes in my life, when I've been in some of the darkest days of my life, some of the darkest places, and let me tell you folks, I have been in some dark places in my life. I have been there, and then literally all I could do was just stay in this moment. I'm okay right now. It's okay right now. And I have hope that I'm going to be okay in the next right now, and the next right now. So sometimes just stay in the moment. Practice the presence that we do here with our affirmative prayer. Meditate. Use affirmations. The affirmative prayer is great. Take that 5-step process. Affirmations are great. You can journal, talk to a friend, take a walk, go for a run, take a warm bath, do breath work. Breath work is a great way to cope if you're feeling hopeless. Just get in touch with your breath. Do energy work. Find someone who does Reiki or does some other form of energy work and see someone. Go to a Unity service. If you're feeling hopeless in your life, come to Unity. Join us on Zoom. Join us on Facebook Live. Come to the sanctuary and join us here. Because I can promise you, one of the things we always try to give here at Unity is hope. Because there is always hope. And as soon as we begin to feel these feelings of hope, we begin to realize what's possible. Once I began to have a feeling of hope, I realized that there is something better that is possible. After I had that surgery and I got home, I immediately felt better. And I took that first little walk. Well, I began to feel that I was going to recover and my body was going to heal. Now, it took a few more years for me to completely heal that diverticulitis, but I had hope that it was going to happen. That hope led to faith. The hope I experience today becomes the faith of tomorrow. So what about faith? How does hope and faith fit in here? How does faith work into my life? And what is the purpose of faith? Well, there are a lot of people today who believe that faith really has no part in the modern day world. At least not spiritual faith. Or maybe I should say it this way, that there are many people today that have no faith in spirit. Today, people have faith in matter. We believe in matter, things we can touch and taste and smell and feel. We believe in matter. We believe in things that we can quantify and qualify. We believe in things that we can test and measure and calculate. Those are the things that we put our faith in, not these spiritual things. You can't do any of that with spirit. How do you quantify spirit? How do you qualify spirit? How do you measure spirit? It can't be measured. It can't be tested. Why have faith in it? Many people today really just give lip service to the idea of spirit or to spiritual matters. You know, for most people, their spiritual lives pretty much just revolves around getting up on Sunday morning, going to the church of their choice, whatever denomination that may be, doing their worship, contributing their tithe, and then they go through their week and they probably never think about it much, you know, unless they go to a Wednesday night service maybe or something like that. So most people don't really think about spiritual matters, not the way, you know, we like to here at Unity. And if you don't believe us, just come for our 9:30 book study, because we're talking about some pretty spiritual things there about, you know, what happens to the soul after we die. That's a purely spiritual study because there's no material involved in that at all. So at Unity, you know, we know different. We know that we live in this world that is seemingly material. It's hard, it's solid. We live in the real world, but yet we also understand that behind this facade of realness is the truth. That everything that we see and touch and taste and measure and quantify and qualify, all of those things are but manifestations of spirit. And it has its basis in the spiritual world. You know, again, we have our first principle. God is there everywhere, but we also have our second principle, which goes along with this one. Human beings are divine at their core and therefore inherently good. And this is another big one to contemplate, another big one to think about. Human beings are divine at their core. So I have that hope. To go back, I have that hope that God is all there is. Spirit is all there is. Love is all there is. That's the hope that I get. And from that hope, I can start building faith that human beings are divine at their core and therefore inherently good. That is the faith I can build. Hope and faith, in my mind, begins with these two statements, with these first two principles from Unity. You know, we can look at the world around us, and obviously there's a lot not right in the world today. If I want to judge, I can find a lot that I can say is not right. Humanity has gone through an especially challenging time since the pandemic. And to many, the light of hope has diminished. And for some, it's gone completely out. And it breaks my heart. I hear people, interact with people who, to me, appear to be hopeless. They've given up. They've given up on life. They've given up on their life. But it is just during these times, it is during these difficult times that we are called upon to take up these spiritual powers and to fan the spark of hope in our souls. And how do we do that? How can we fan that spark of hope? How can we take up these spiritual powers and move from despair and move into celebration? Well, you know, I think it begins with gratitude. You know, how coincidental is it? How interesting is it that in the United States, we have Thanksgiving at the end, you know, fourth Thursday of November, the end of November every year, right at the time when the Advent season begins. So we enter this Advent season, we've all been giving thanks. You know, maybe it's one of those divine coincidences that isn't a divine coincidence, that isn't a coincidence at all. You know, as we open to gratitude, as we begin to look for the good the good in my life, the good in life in general, as we look for the good, our hope begins to grow. So, one thing you can do if you're feeling discouraged, if you're feeling despair, is stay in that gratitude mode. Make a list of things you're grateful for every single day. Another thing you can do is you can meditate on these 5 principles. Spend some time every day. Maybe take one principle and just for a whole month, meditate on it every day for 10 minutes and just contemplate on what that principle means. And do that with every principle and just go through them month after month after month. These are powerful ways that you can help to build these forces of hope in your body. Studying the Spirit builds our faith. When we study these things, when we do these things, when we take these actions, it builds our faith, much like we're doing in our book study. During that book study and studying what happens to the soul when it dies is increasing my faith that I am a spiritual being and that this material life is but a transitory thing. As much as I love it and I enjoy it and I appreciate it and I just, I love it. And so grateful for my life today. I know it's not real. It's not the essential. It's not the essential. It's not what matters. Faith. The substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. How many of you have heard that, familiar with that verse? I probably learned that verse when I was before first grade. By the time I was in first grade, I probably heard that verse often enough where I was going to church and that I had it memorized. But you know what? It's taken me decades and even today to really try to grasp the essence of what that statement means. So if faith is the substance of things hoped for, if faith is substance, that means faith is substance. Hope is a spiritual practice. So we develop these feelings of hope. It's an inner work. It's something we do inner to build these feelings of hope. Faith is an outer action. Kind of reminds me of the saying y'all have heard, love is a verb. Faith is an action. Love is a verb. I had hope after my surgery, and from the power of hope, I had faith that I could go for a walk. So I put substance around my hope, and I put on my shoes, and I went out the front door. As we develop hope, and we start to build faith around that hope, then that substance, to me, it's that will activity. It's those forces of will that rise up in us, and that faith leads us to take an action step. And then from that little first action step, that first little seed, we're inspired to take the next step and the next step. I stepped out the door and I went to the street and I came back, but it was a start. And the next day, my faith added substance to my hope, and I was able to walk to the end of the block. I made it a little bit further. My faith is the action that builds on my hope. There's another verse, and perhaps you're familiar with this one. Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. I like the old King James Version. Faith without works is dead, right? Faith without works is dead. But someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. So the faith aspect requires action. It requires work. As we look to the liturgical year ahead, we can ask ourselves, what works am I willing to start? What works am I willing to start? Or what works am I going to continue? Or what works do I need to stop? Or what works do I need to release? Sometimes that action in faith, sometimes our greatest step of faith, our greatest action in faith is in the things that we let go of. Which is interesting because our power for the month of November is release or elimination. So we're focusing on what are we letting go of? What are we letting go of? And sometimes that's an act of faith to let those things go. It is the smallest works of faith that build our hope. The smallest works of faith that build our hope. I'm someone who has struggled over my lifetime with food at different times, and I can remember, there were times when I've decided I'm going to make a change. I need to maybe cut back the sugar. I'm going to try to lose weight or whatever the case may be. And, and I can remember I felt good because maybe I went through the entire day and I only drank one Coke all day long. Where before I'd been drinking 3 or 4 a day, now I'm only drinking one. That's a very small step, but that little bit of faith, that little small action step builds my hope. Well, maybe tomorrow I can drink none. And so we take these small steps. And as we look forward, it's these smallest steps which builds our greater hope. So we have a little bit of hope. We bring within ourselves. And that hope, it's an inner work. So we have to reach within ourselves and we have to look for the good and bring that good to the forefront. And from that hope, we get this spark that maybe things are going to be okay. And maybe there's something I can do. And so we take an action. We get some guidance. Well, I'm really feeling lost right now. I don't know what to do. Well, I know, I'm going to go to Unity on Sunday morning. I'm going to go to Unity on Sunday. Maybe that's the message. I'm going to see, and then, see what happens there. And then from Unity, you come here. Well, there's a book study. I'm going to start studying that book. There's a Wednesday afternoon book study. I'm going to join that book study. You start taking the small steps, and that builds your hope. And it just goes on and on and on. And as I thought about this and preparing this, I realized it truly is a litmus gate. It truly is a litmus gate where we are going from hope to faith to hope to faith. At Unity of Little Rock, we've been practicing this daily for the past year and a half. Right, Linda? At times with this pandemic, the future here at Unity of Little Rock has seemed uncertain. And we still certainly have many challenges facing us. But we have all kept the spark of hope alive. And we have taken the action that was needed. How easy would it have been for us just to close the doors up in 2020? When they shut the country down and it's like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We could have done like many churches did. They just shut the doors and they just didn't meet for months and months and months and months. But that's not what we did. We began having our virtual services on Zoom. We'd never done that before. But Gene McGee and the board jumped in there and we began, during the services doing the services on Zoom during the worst of the pandemic. And that was certainly an act of hope and an act of faith. And it was even a bigger act of hope and perhaps a bigger act of faith when we opened the building back up. So, as our membership dropped, so did donations. Things been pretty tight. We're pretty tight around here for a while. I'm like I say, I'm treasurer of the board. And I'm going to tell you, we had a period of time where we had less than $100 in the checking account. It's like, whoa. But you know what? Every bill was paid on time. We met every obligation. And today we have thousands of dollars in our checking account. We kept moving forward in faith. We kept moving forward in hope. Today, I personally have faith that Unity of Little Rock will come out on the other side of this pandemic bigger, better, stronger than ever. I know that we certainly can. I don't know if we will. Because unfortunately, doesn't just depend on me, it depends on all of us. But yes, it certainly can. Again, it depends on all of us. But that will depend on all of us working together, working in unison toward a common goal. And as it says on our new and improved website, which Angel helped get up and running, and I love this, it says that Unity of Little Rock is a positive, fun-loving place to worship, learn, and celebrate. We offer an inspirational Sunday service and classes, both in person and using Zoom. Unity is a positive, practical, progressive approach to Christianity based on the teachings of Jesus and the power of prayer. Maybe we should have added on there, Unity is a beacon of hope. Because that's truly how I see Unity of Little Rock, as a beacon of hope. You know, once again, we're brought to that first principle. God is all there is and present everywhere. The force of love and wisdom that underlies all existence. When I first came to Unity, that idea was so foreign to me and so lost, coming from this very fundamentalist background. You know, had God in a very small box. But I came to Unity, and it was after I had left my old church, and I'd kind of been homeless church-wise for a while, and I finally came to a Unity service at the insistence of a friend of mine who y'all know well, Dr. Russ Jackman. And, Russ has got me to my first Unity service years ago, and he was already attending here. And that first service, I felt hope. I felt hope. I had learned enough in my old church that I had some faith. I knew there was something spiritual. I was in my 30s at the time, so I knew there was a spiritual component to life, but I was confused about it. I didn't know what to make. I didn't even know where to start to begin to explore the spiritual side of life until I came to Unity of Little Rock. And I'm so glad I did, because I was in a very, very rough state of soul at that time. And I was in danger, as I look back on it, of really losing my faith. And that's something to look at too. Consider what happens if we lose our faith. What are the consequences of living a life without faith? Well, first of all, it's impossible to live a life without faith. You always have faith in something. If you're like if nothing else, we had faith that the sun was going to rise this morning. We have faith that around 5:30 this evening, the sun's going to set and it's going to be dark. And then in 12 hours, the sun's going to rise. We have faith in that. So don't tell me you don't believe in faith. Don't tell me you believe in science. Don't tell me you believe in modern technology, that you have no value in faith, because it is faith that tells you that one day passes after another. We all have faith. We all have faith in our bodies to some degree, to be healthy, to stay healthy. So we all have faith, but without faith, something in the human being goes to waste. Instead of those forces of faith that we can build up and we can put into action, good works, as we build our faith, we take more action. We do our good works. Instead of those forces of faith being used for action, they're dissipated. And they're left for nothing. A life without faith is handicapped by fear, anxiety, and worry. It is these forces of hope and faith that invigorate the soul. It is the forces of faith that give life to the soul, that give life to life. And it's at those times when we feel most afraid, most worried, most anxious. It is during those times that it becomes most important to pause and to mentally and spiritually connect with the forces of hope and faith in your soul. And I promise you, it's always there. Hope is always an option. Hope is always an option, and hope builds the substance of faith, which leads to the action to be taken as directed by your divine guidance. You know, I've shared before my appreciation for the book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And you know, when he was in the concentration camps, you know, this is what he found his hope and his faith by being of service to others. And he spent the time ministering to those in the concentration camp that were doing worse than he was, that were worse off. It's hard to imagine comparisons like that in that situation. But that's where he took it. And that's what we have available to us today. There is always hope. So if you're looking around the world today, and you know, we're still in this pandemic, and there's a lot of people I know today that are concerned about, you know, the health of our world and where that's going to go and how that's going to end. And there's so much. There's just so much that we're holding space for right now. And so as Unitix, as someone that's tuned into this, I encourage all of us to hold a vessel of hope and faith, not just for our own personal lives, and I certainly want you to do it for yourself, but hold it for the world. Hope leads to faith. Faith leads to action, and it's the action that leads to greater hope and greater realization, and it's back to that limnos gate. And then when we have that greater realization, we are faced with bigger challenges. So we're kind of pushed a little bit, and as we're pushed, we have to dig a little bit deeper, and it just goes on and on and on. And I think that's going to conclude my comments. Thank you all for listening, and now I want us to go ahead and let's prepare for a meditation. So if you would, either at home or here, go ahead and get yourself comfortable. Close your eyes if you like, and I want you to take in a cleansing breath. Breathe in and blow it out. And again, breath in and breath out. And as you do, just do a quick survey of your thoughts. Is there anything that's weighing heavily on your mind at the moment? Some worry, some concern, some heartache? Are you grieving over a loss? Are you longing for something? What desire is calling you? Is there something you're trying to overcome or something you're trying to change? Do you have pain? Perhaps it's a mental pain and anguish. Perhaps it's a heartache, heartbreak, or maybe it's just physical pain in your body. Maybe you are dealing with physical challenges or illness that has taken the joy out of living. Perhaps you're confused and seeking clarity and understanding for a situation you're facing. Whatever it is, bring this to your mind. And as you think of the enormity of your challenge, imagine to yourself, ask yourself, how big is it? How big is this challenge I am facing? And using your power of imagination, imagine a faith that is so big that it completely evaporates your fears and anxieties around your challenge. Imagine having a faith so big that whatever worry or concern that's in your mind right now completely dissolves. Because you know that you know that you know that it's handled. Imagine a faith that opens the door to joy. Joy in your life. Even during the hard times, even during hardship, even during moments of pain, have the faith that opens joy in your heart, knowing that these challenges are not the truth. Many years ago, I heard this. How quickly would it take you to change your state of mind if someone were to give you, no strings attached, $1 million cash right now? How quickly would it change everything in your life if that were to happen? And the purpose of that is to show you how quickly things can change. Unfortunately, no one's here with $1 million to give to any of us, I don't believe. But the fact is, by changing your mind and building the faith, see that faith. Imagine if you had the faith to move mountains. Picture that faith. And as you feel that faith, say to yourself, I am the presence of pure being, emanating the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. In faith, say to yourself, I am all that God is, expressing at the point of me. As I express divine wisdom, all thoughts of mortal limitation have no power over me. I am the presence and power of pure love, bringing into manifestation my world according to divine wisdom. And for this realization, I give thanks. My heart is filled with gratitude, and I let my light shine bright and be a source of hope to those in the world around me. And so it is. Thank you, everyone. Y'all have been very attentive. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, we come now to this part of our service for our offering. And again, thank you to everyone for your generous support that keeps our doors open and the heat going. And so today, if you have an offering to make today, hold it in hand. Or if you're making your offerings online, just hold it in your heart and say together with us our blessing. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Let's go ahead and say our prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, united all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Yeah, God. All right. Thank you, everyone.